you are listening to the Kinetic Man Podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
Men, we are opening up House 3 in September. Go to our website, thekineticman.com, to sign up. This mastermind is going to take you through clarity. It's going to take you through identity. And then from your identity, picking out your values. From your values, picking out your purpose and your why. And then we go into the kinetic life circle. You've probably heard us talk about that. We break that down into 3 different areas: energy, meaningful relationships, and stewardship. And it covers 9 different areas of your life that lead you to becoming a better father, a better husband, and a better man. So if you want to join a tribe, a community of men who are going through these topics and becoming the best versions of themselves for their kids, for their wives, for their communities, then come join us, thekineticman.com.
My dudes, Stuart, a.k.a. Estuardo, a.k.a. Uncle Stewie.
I've never heard anyone
Steven?
say Estuardo to me before.
I've called you Estuardo before. That's
Besides you.
Stuart in Spanish.
Yeah.
It's somebody, and you've heard it before.
You're a nobody.
Hey, I want to share. So this episode, I'm pretty excited about it because one, I did some research on the power of a name, and it was pretty fascinating to me. We love digging into data, reading things, and then turning around and kind of giving our take on that and things we learned and different lessons. So I learned a lot as we've considered and hit pulled the trigger on our rebrand, our name change, and all this kind of stuff. And it's very exciting to me. But it also reminded me, when I started digging into the power of a name, do you guys I literally, especially when I'm yelling at my kids, I'll be like, Jacob, Maya, Noah, Carlos. I'll call the kids every name. Even the dog's
Carlos,
name.
your dog's name?
Yeah, the dog is Carlos, and he's looking like, what did I do? And he never did anything because he's the best behaved child I have. But it's very interesting because not only do the children not acknowledge because I'm not saying their name, which that's a key part of it, but there's power in finally getting it right and getting their attention. But do you guys struggle with this? Because I know.
So you're saying that you are yelling at Jacob, but you say Noah, or you say Carlos.
Yeah.
You say Carlos,
Yeah.
the dog,
You
but you're yelling
go
at
through
Jacob.
the Rolodex of all the names in your family.
Yeah.
Do you
I
add
go through it
Erica?
all.
Do you add Erica into that mix? Because I add Crystal
Sometimes.
into that mix
Does she-
sometimes. Like, whatever your name is.
Yeah.
Happens to me all the
You know
time.
who you are. You know who you are. You know what you did, and you know I'm talking to you. Yeah. I throw my wife deserves it sometimes too. And so they all get it. Yeah. Am I alone in this? I'm
You're
not
not.
alone in this.
You're not alone in this.
I know I'm not alone
You're
in this.
not alone in this amongst old people. My mother does that.
Okay.
So are you saying we're old?
I'm saying at least one of you is old. So by extension, possibly both.
David's the oldest in this group. So
Seeing that we're the same age, almost exactly.
hey, man.
I think
2 months older.
I think he's insulting us. Look, Steven, young buck, you'll figure it out one day. Hey, so let's dive in. The power of a name. I'll tell you, this was like I mentioned, this was a fascinating, read and study for me, and the different resources that I looked at were just were very enlightening. But it seems pretty obvious, and oftentimes we just don't consider it, that the power of a name, even our own name, is something that is almost sacred, right? It's something that is very powerful. It's something that gives life. And we just don't really think about it that often. It's not something that I have necessarily considered deeply, but then as I did, I'm like, oh, this makes total sense, and you can see the application. And so I would invite everybody, just take a second to think about the feeling you get when someone uses your name, right? And I want to, we joke about this all the time in my neighborhood, but I want to throw a quick reminder out there. when you see someone, you're like, especially us men, you're like, hey, dude, what's up, man? Big guy. Hey, sport, right? Well, I don't know who's used sport. Have you any of you guys used sport recently?
I've never used sport.
Hey,
Never used
bro.
sport in my entire life. Bro is like a big one, right? Hey, and you want to spice it up. What's up, brosif? And I got guys, hey, brosifina. Like there's all these things that we throw out there they're just, I want to be very clear. Those are not names. And I'll tell you, they do have an impact. As I thought about this, I'm like, that's so interesting, how that makes me feel. But I will tell you that the alternative to that is when you see someone, you say hello, and they use your name. Like, how does that make you feel? Right? It sets a different tone and immediately causes you to feel a certain way, especially like in this context, us three. Hey, what's up, bro? What's up, dude? Like we know each other's names, we know each other intimately, but think about when it's somebody that you don't necessarily see every day, or even somebody that you don't even necessarily think knows your name. And when those people throw your name out, it's like, oh, they remember my name. And I know for me personally, I'm usually like, man, I really wish I remembered that dude's name right now because
My
I would
man.
love, and my man, what's up, my dude? It really would. I want to give them that gift back, and oftentimes I'm at a loss, but there's power to that. You just have to think about it, think about those situations. And so as we looked at renaming our business, we literally spent hours considering the ramification of changing everything, right? Changing the podcast, the website, changing, all the things, the swag. I mean, there's a lot that goes into, rebranding. People call it rebranding, but it's not rebranding. It's changing the name, which oftentimes, if you really dig into it, it changes the identity and ideally adds clarity to what it is that you're trying to do. And so there's a lot of, it's very considerable, and it's a very powerful thing. And it oftentimes it could be a process that just, there's change in it. There may be loss, there may be pain, there may be, but ultimately you're gaining this other level, ideally, or maybe you should reconsider doing it. And for us, Storehouse is so meaningful and continues to be meaningful in so many ways, right? I mean, it's not something that, Storehouse isn't dying. The thing that we do in Storehouse, the real estate thing, is very clear. It's identified by that name. And so that's changing from that was a significant step for us. But what we realized is the name Storehouse was not accurately capturing the spirit or the identity of us, the efforts that we're doing, or the journey that we're on to be kinetic men, right? That whole journey was not being accurately captured or powerfully captured or clearly captured in the name Storehouse. And so we decided to dig into the power and meaning of a name, and we got extremely excited. I'm still excited about choosing a name that embodies the business, and quite frankly, this movement that we're really trying to push, this lifestyle, this change, and what we've dedicated ourselves to. I mean, this is what we do. When people ask, again, identity question, hey, what is it that you say you do around here? For me, it's very clear, and it becomes this thing that I'm identified by, and it needed to have a name that clearly embodied exactly what it is that we're doing, and we've dedicated ourselves to, because we have the honor and the pleasure and the beauty of being able to dedicate effectively a lot of our personal, but our professional lives to doing this thing that we're doing, which is, we're going to dive into the name. So just question to consider: what does it mean when someone uses your name? And it was, as I read through this, there's certain things that are very powerful, right? They're acknowledging you. When I say Stephen, it is very clear that when I use your name, that I want your total attention, right? That I'm talking to Stephen, or I'm talking to Stuart. And by using your name, I'm telling you not only that I want your attention, I'm seeking you, but I'm also telling you that you are important enough for me to not only engage with, but to call you by that thing that ultimately was your primary identity. And there's a lot of power in that, right? And it makes for more engagement in the conversation. And it also makes, at least from my perspective, when I use your name, it makes me more invested in you. And I truly believe it makes you more invested in me. And again, going back to the thought of when someone's like, hey guy, my investment in that is not is not super powerful, right? When like David or when someone, when I know they know me, when they say Goody, hey Goody, I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Let's
or
talk.
or David.
Or dude, David is and it's interesting, right? When someone says, and some people will call me Dave, and they've always called me Dave, so that no issue there. But when somebody new is like, hey Dave, I'm like, they don't really know me,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not a Dave. I never introduced myself as a Dave. Now again, some of my best friends in the world call me Dave because they started doing that in high school. But again, it's there. There's nuance and there's power in that, right? And what does it mean when someone doesn't use your name? You know, the alternative to that is, like, I know for me, it makes me wonder if they even know my name, right? Because I also know when I don't use your name, that there's a good chance I'm like, oh, I don't remember dude's name. And so I'm not using it. So, like, intuitively that when someone doesn't use your name, you wonder if they know your name. And that causes you to wonder, are they interested in what you have to say? You know, not using their name can make someone come off, you know, you seem distant, not caring, aloof, superior, whatever. There's all these adjectives, and typically they're not great adjectives. And it's just in the simple use of a name or not using a name. So there's power in that, right? And I think oftentimes a name opens the door to a connection. So a person's name is a doorway into their world, right? When you say David, there's implications there, whether there's cultural implications, there's a depth to that that's just different. And it's just a very fascinating thing, and it has power to open a new connection, right? A connection to show them who you are, and a connection to show them how you see them. And it's just a very powerful, using a name as a bridge, I think, to make an impact in somebody's life. And there's a lot of power in that. So we have to use it wisely. And I think you consider, from a business perspective, the names you use, you have to consider them and use them very wisely. And when you honor somebody, it also opens the door to a connection, right? We believe that this is true not only with our names and the people that we engage with in our group and our tribe. Like even recently, when we were up in the retreat, I kept calling Michael Mike. Like he's like, dude, it's Michael. And I've known Michael,
Yeah,
Michael for.
I love that he called you out on that too.
I love it too, dude. I love it too. And I told him, and I stopped, and I'm like, you know what, Michael? It is very important to me that you feel that you know how important you are to me, and I will make an effort. And it was a joke, but then it went. I made it. I wanted to make the point to be like, dude, I see you, and I
Yeah.
love you, and I want to acknowledge you and who you are. And so I made a point to say that, right? To be like, dude, it is important for me to honor you in that way. And we hadn't even done this. I hadn't done this research at this point. Um,
You know
but
something
it but
else?
it's powerful.
Yeah, man. Something else that I've noticed specifically about you, you do a really good job of is if you don't know or don't remember a guy's name, like you humble yourself enough to be like, dude, I'm so sorry, man. Like, tell me your name again. Like, remind me of your game. And you kind of make a joke out of it, but like, you're really good at that of like just being humble and throwing yourself out there and be like, hey, man, tell me your name again. I've noticed that about you, and you're, just something that you're really good at. So I'm acknowledging that you're
Well,
good
I
at that.
appreciate that, man. And I'll tell you, it is humbling. and but it's important because it is such an empowering thing on the other side of that. And I think we don't recognize or acknowledge that, to our own detriment to our relationships. Even those relationships that are, it's funny. I was even thinking about it with my mom. Like everybody calls her Yaya, and it is something that she is totally embraced. Like everybody calls her Yaya. All my friends, the neighbors, like everybody's like, "Oh, is Yaya coming?" I don't even know if people know her name, and I don't even call her mom anymore because I think she embraces Yaya, to be honest, more deeply and powerfully and lovingly than she does mom anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's
It
an
Same
becomes an
thing.
interesting thing.
identity.
It's an identity.
It becomes like an identity that you
100%.
put on.
100%. And honoring and acknowledging that is powerful. And we're actually going to talk about here in a sec the idea of name changing too, and the power in that and the identity in that. But I think that extends to businesses. It's not just our names, it's the businesses that we run, and that we put a lot of thought and a lot of passion and desire and love into the name Storehouse, because what it represented to us at that time and what it meant, right? And so I would say we've put even more, because we've added a third brain and a brain and an identity and a passion and a power to this mix. And so this new name is in capturing even more of that, right? And so it's pretty awesome. Dale Carnegie, the famous author of the best-selling How to Win Friends and Influence People, he once said, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language." And I thought that was really interesting. So a dude that wrote a book about how to win friends and influence people, and he's famous for this back in the 30s. He said, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language." So if you really embrace that, it changes your willingness to humble yourself for whatever, to ask a person, "Hey, what's your name?" Because it is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. It's a really interesting quote, and I loved it. And so our names and the names of the group we attach ourselves to, the businesses we support, the labels we wear, all these things speak volumes to our identity and what is most important to us, right? Like this, it is not just, the Patagonia wearers, like it's not just a shirt. Well, it's an investment, but it's not just a thing that you wear. It absolutely says something about you. And so, excuse me. And so in addition to the importance of using the name, there's also huge power in the meaning of a name, right? It's the meaning of a name is critical. And this is where I really, really started enjoying this even more. So I went to the Bible, and when you look at the Bible, throughout the Bible, names, they said exactly what they meant, like especially in the Old Testament, right? So like names they weren't just labels. To the ancient Hebrews, names, nothing existed until it had a name. The name expressed its character, right? So you even think about Genesis, and when God named Adam, and then what did he tell him to do? He said, "Here, name the animals," right? And there was a lot of power in that, and it didn't exist until it had a name. And some names are funny, dude. Like when you look in the Bible, Esau, you look at the Old Testament, Esau. Well, dude had a lot of hair when he was born, and so his parents named him Harry. Like literally, they named him Harry, not Harry. They named him Hairy. Your name is Harry because you got a lot of hair. And that a lot of times though was how the in biblical times the names were given. And to the same point, Esau's brother Jacob, well, Jacob means supplanter. And I don't know if you remember the story, but he was grasping the hill as he was born. He gave up his birthright, like he was very deceptive. So the name Jacob means supplanter, and he lived up to that name. But God changed his name to, anybody? Israel. Israel, right? God changed his name to Israel, and everything about his story, his impact, and his legacy changed. Like I actually hesitated to name my son Jacob because of what Jacob meant. But then you look at the whole story, you were like, okay, yeah, well, I'm not going to name him Israel because it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily. But Jacob became somebody different. And when Jesus, you fast forward to the New Testament, and dude, there's so much, like we could spend an entire multiple episodes of the podcast talking about names, right? Just in the Bible. But fast forward to the New Testament, when Jesus, when he wanted to emphasize that Simon would be a steadfast upholder of his teachings and literally the rock upon which he built his church, he gave Simon the name Peter, right? And Peter means rock in Greek. And so he changed his name, and he changed his identity, and he changed his entire future. And that's super powerful. So we literally could talk hours on changing, but the thing about it is oftentimes when names are changed, it reflects a character and an identity change. And it's absolutely fascinating study. And I would encourage all of our listeners to explore that more deeply as you dive into your own journey of self-awareness and examination. Look at your name and do some research and let that empower you, let that change you, because it's a great place to start. So what, dude? So why are we talking about this? Why did I do this reading? Why is this important? This journey led us to and got us extremely fired up about changing our name, because as Proverbs 22:1 says, a good name is more desirable than great riches. And so I want to be the first to welcome the world to Stu is now Bobby Checklist and Steven is Johnny Big Brains. Like we're changing their names. It's going to be, it's
Bobby
empowering their
Checklist.
identities. Yeah. Bobby Checklist.
I didn't approve that name change.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is a reflective of your identity and character. And then Steven is now Johnny Big Brains. So Johnny Big Brains, congratulations, world. No, obviously I'm joking, but all joking aside, we chose the name The Kinetic Man because it to us, it powerfully and clearly identifies us and motivates us to pursue the men that we truly desire to become, and that's to become kinetic men. We want to be surrounded by kinetic men, and so it just makes sense to change the name and to have a brand that just clearly expresses exactly what we want to do and who we want to be with. And so the Kinetic Man, dude, I'm fired up, excited.
Yeah, dude, it's so good, man. It's interesting. I was thinking back through this journey of us, kind of transitioning out of the military, and we had already kind of established the Storehouse brand, and I had found a lot of identity in Storehouse. Like I would always say, like Stu and David are Storehouse, and like we started, people in our network actually started really identifying Stu and David as Storehouse, and it was Storehouse everything. Like most of our businesses are Storehouse related, and that came from Malachi 3:10, where the goal of our business was to give and to give a tenth of our income, and we were tithing to the Storehouse. So that's where it all kind of originated from. But the power of our name, just like you said, David, is really true. And we didn't see aligning Storehouse with the Kinetic Man. Like they just didn't align. And so really we started kind of looking at our lives and looking at, when we were transitioning out and looking at what we were doing with real estate, we kind of were in a dark place. At least I was. And we had kind of really, we had identified these areas in our life that we had set our priorities, but we weren't really taking action on those priorities. So we started kind of identifying, these key elements that were missing, that we had kind of dropped as a priority and we weren't focusing on. And so we came up with the Kinetic Life Circle. These were items in our life that we needed to take action on. We needed to be kinetic on. So it came from like a place of failure. It came from discomfort in our own lives. And we found ourselves focusing on, the transition, our real estate businesses, making money. And we weren't focusing on, like our family and our health and our faith and, all these areas that we said were a priority. And one of the interesting things was David and I were being coached, and we were put through this exercise. This exercise was basically to reflect on your life 10 years from now. And if we didn't change anything that we did in our lives, what would that look like? For me, it was a little scary. I did not like what I saw in the future 10 years from now. So what I saw was still, hustling, grinding, focused on the real estate business, making money. My relationship with my wife had just continued to kind of move apart. My kids didn't know me. I wasn't having any fun. I was fat because I was, continuing to gain weight because I wasn't focused on my health. And I just didn't like what I saw. So we had to change. We had to make massive change. We had to change our daily habits. We had to redefine success. We had to redefine what success looked like. And we had to change our personal and our business calendars to match our priorities in order to be the best husbands, the best fathers, the best friends, and honestly, the best leaders both in our community and in our businesses. So, we had to take massive action in these areas to live the life that God created us for.
And I just want to say there, Stu, like to the outside world, you probably looked very successful,
100%.
right? Like this, you were hitting the points of success as you left the military that other people would have defined for you.
Yeah. I mean, we were, had a successful real estate business. We were flipping 40, 50 houses a year. We had we have this podcast, and we were very active on all the socials, and had a thought leadership platform. And, we were transitioning out at 20 years of military service. We, had a full, pension coming our way, and all these things that, were signs of success. But, internally and doing that exercise of looking 10 years in the future, man, it did not look successful to me. And so, like I said, we built out what we call the Kinetic Life Circle, and the Kinetic Life Circle is essentially the roadmap to redefining success in our lives. Putting the priorities at the forefront of our calendar. So we started with kind of the foundation, and we broke it down by clarity, identity, our values, and our purpose. And clarity, we kind of start with the end in mind. And we had been pushed through this exercise before, through our other coaching. And we forced ourselves to write our eulogy. And it's an interesting exercise. You write your eulogy, how it looks like right now. Like, let's say I passed away tomorrow, and you write your eulogy, and then you write another eulogy, like how you want it to look, like how you want it to be read. And you'll find that there's a big gap between those two eulogies. And it's really, really powerful, because you then can take action on those steps. And that's what we're all about, is taking action, and trying to fill in those gaps. So we start with clarity. And then, we've already talked about it a lot on this podcast episode, is identity. I think there's so many people that never discover who they were created to be. A lot of people spend years, they waste copious amounts of energy, and they live into this parody of their real true self. Like, they try so hard to be who they think they should be, or maybe who like their friends think they should be, or their family, or maybe what like they think the culture that you're living in should be. But we end up failing at being somebody that they're not. And instead, we should really reflect and succeed at being who we were made to be, and find that true identity.
I think the identity piece is particularly powerful because all three of us are vets, and we're exiting the military at the time. And to any current military folks or previous military folks, we are handed an identity that's so strong that I think people really struggle with that coming out, when that identity is removed, and they don't realize they've been living under that umbrella of identity so thoroughly, that there's sort of a gap. There's a missing piece in their life. And I think all three of us felt that coming out. I know at one point, the three of us were sitting around a campfire, and we said, is it a train wreck for everyone coming out of the military, no matter how prepared you are? And we all basically took a second to think about it and said, yeah, I think so. And I think that piece of it is particularly why.
Well, and it's interesting. I'm glad you said that, Stephen, because I have yet to meet the individual that has not struggled through the transition, specifically from military, but even from, a W-2 to entrepreneur. Most all of our network are entrepreneurs in some shape or fashion, right? They either have side gigs or they're fully entrepreneurial. And I have yet to meet the individual that has not struggled through any transition, particularly one as significant, going from something like the military, which is full of identity and purpose and pride and all that great stuff, that ultimately you're going to leave at some point. And that includes everything from, as a CEO, as a commanding officer, the most entry level ranks, people getting out at a year, 2 years, 4 years, or dudes, unfortunately, that I had the the obligation to kick out, right? Because of things that they did, even those young individuals, that transition was hard. To admirals, like I recently stopped an admiral in San Diego that I worked for, and he had made it to three. I think he was a 3-star when he got out, and he was struggling mightily, and I think probably more so than the guy that hadn't spent the last 40 years in uniform. And so it's such an important piece. And Stu, I want to hit on something that you also are highlighting as we continue to go through this. There's a lot of potential in that wheel. It's a beautiful kinetic life circle, right? It's just a beautiful thing. And the topics are amazing, and the way we've broken them down and we've highlighted them. There's so much to be gained by living that life, but it means nothing until you put it into action. Potential is a word that I don't want to define anything I do, because I'm taking so much radical action that there's no room for potential, right? It's action. And I just want to hit on the fact that the kinetic life circle is powerless until you do something about it, which is why kinetic is such a big part of everything we do.
Yeah, you don't want someone to be reading your eulogy and say, he had so much potential, right?
He could have been so amazing.
He could have been such a great father.
What a husband that he wanted to be.
Yeah, I don't want
the
that.
image of the man that he wanted to be is really, really special.
Yeah, I don't want that to be read. So, back to kind of the foundation of where we started. We dug into our core values. It's interesting. David and I think this is true for a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, is you go dive into the core values of your business. But David and I had never really identified our own personal core values, our family core values. So we had gone through an exercise and found and identified and defined our business core values, and that's plastered right on, the homepage of our website. But we didn't even have personal and family core values. And our family, like our kids, our wife, like they definitely didn't know like what our core values. We don't have it plastered like somewhere in our house. And so like there's a gap there. And so like we defined our core values, and they're not just posters on the wall. They're not just, a link on our website. Like they were developed, and they describe who we are, and they actually drive the decisions that we make. And I think that is lacking for a lot of people. And so we start there. We start in that foundation. And similar to identity, we also kind of really dive into our purpose, discovering the calling that we were created for. It's not an event. It's a process. And for a lot of us, it's a lifelong process. Some of us like are just getting started, but some of us have been down the road quite a few. But regardless of our age, it's never too late to start. And, in the mastermind, like we have, young bucks like Steven here. And then we have like old grandpas like, Dave Perez. And so, it depends on where you are on that spectrum of figuring out your purpose. But again, it's never too late to start. Next, this is where we get into the meat of it. This is what David and I really identified as gaps in our life. We said these are all priorities, but we weren't actually taking action on them. We group these elements into kind of 3 main areas of focus. We focus on energy, stewardship, and most importantly, meaningful relationships. We'll start with energy. It starts with health, mindset, and fun. We know that if you show up in the world with positive energy, it's a critical aspect of who we are and who we want to become. So the idea of a growth mindset, the idea of being healthy, the idea of actually having fun in life, right? Like not just like go out and hang out at a work event, but like belly laughing fun. Like when's the last time you went and like really had fun with a group of dudes or with your wife or with your kids? So we use those to really maximize potential and take action to become our highest and best selves. Next.
Yeah, man, I recently read a book that we love. I want to highlight it, but Die with Zero. one of the things he said in that book is we've got this, what you just described, this energy thing, we've got it backwards. We put all this energy into making money. And then once we feel comfortable in our money, we're going to go do things. And he highlights in there, and we talk about this all the time. Like if say that takes you to the age of 60, well, how many fun activities and experiences are now gone that are things that you do in your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, right? Like climbing the Spanish stairs and doing red rocks and doing like all these adventures and these things that require a level of health and energy to do them. We miss our opportunity by not focusing on these things and prioritizing. And one of the points that we make all the time is you always have time to make more money, but you can't make more time and you can't make more energy, right? And other things we could do to maximize our energy, but that is just naturally a depleting time and energy, and quite frankly, life is a depleting asset, and it starts today.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, some would argue that time is your most valuable resource. We argue that energy is your most valued resource.
He has a quote in that book. He says that the primary purpose of life is to gather memories. And so you can't push that to the end. You've got to do that throughout the whole length of your life. You've got to put that in focus.
Yeah, dude. I mean, think about that. Like if you are working your entire life for your retirement, to just you're hustling, grinding, you're working, 80 hours a week, and you're missing out on life. You're missing out on your kids' lives, your family's lives, just to get to a place where you can retire at 60 and then the good life starts. Like, I don't know, man. Like, kind of seems backwards. Stewardship is important to us. It consists of themes in finances and in our giving, and the giving piece of that is very, very important to us. It's biblical for us. It comes from that Malachi 3:10 verse. So we are intentional stewards of our time and our resources. We're generous. The mastermind itself has a donor advice fund. We vote quarterly on where we give money, where we support, where we can make a impact in charities and nonprofit organizations that are doing great things in this world. We know that the true measure of our values, it's found in our calendar, and it's found in our checkbook, our bank account. So we strive to be good stewards of the resources that God provided for us. And lastly, but definitely not least, is we absolutely know that having meaningful relationships are paramount to living an amazing, epic life. We focus on our family, and that could be our kids, that could be our parents, that could be our aunts, cousins, uncles, friends that we call Zio. Goody to me in my family is Zio. And that could be our friends, and that could be our faith. Kinetic men define and pursue beautiful relationships with our spouses. We strive for amazing depth and connection with our children and profound meaning in our friendships. We give our relationships quality time, not that leftover time, not after our 80 hours of week. And we live lives of intentionality. We base our values on a North Star. And, that question of, in the faith department, it's not the question of do you have faith, but rather, what do you have faith in? So although all these elements are separate and we dive into each dedicated topic for a full month of discovery, what we found is that they all kind of start tying together, and they really feed off of each other. So if examples, if you're working on your health and you start improving your health, you find that intimacy in your relationships start to grow too, right? And maybe your finances start to grow because you have more energy, and then you start to give more, and you give your time and your resources. And so you'll find that as you start to become better in one area of your life, all the other areas in your life start to become better too. It's really interesting. I don't know. Have you guys found that in your case?
Absolutely. And more to the point, when we built this, we did it very cognizantly, with the understanding that you are absolutely going to, if you improve any of them, it's not like an exclusive, this area of my life, okay, this is now better, now I got to jump to this. No, like if you improve your fitness and your health, that inevitably impacts your ability to put in meaningful work on your professional side and focus, so you can maximize your effort there, and then you can get, you with your family time, if your health is better, like it just maximizes the opportunities to play with your kids and spend time with your wife and do all these things that are important to you, right? Like all of them, if you have core values, you now are able to measure and define the decisions you make off of something that's tangible and important to you, and it's priority based, and it permeates the rest of your life, right? And so every one of these things that we do in every one of these areas that we put effort absolutely impacts all the others. If you put an emphasis on your relationships, on romance with your wife, and those relationships start to thrive, like what does that do? Does that open up capacity in your business to not think about, man, my wife's mad at me, my kids hate me, what are my kids' names again? I don't even remember. Like, I'm fat, I'm whatever. Like
Carlos.
it takes that, yeah, Carlos, that's the favorite one. It takes that stuff off your plate, and now you can be present in what it is that you're trying to do, right? So it is all encompassing, and improvements in any of these areas inevitably lead to and beget improvements in the other areas, for sure.
Yeah, man. Steven?
So I wanted to ask, why have we made this shift? Why are we doing all this? Why has this come into, sharp focus for you guys?
So, again, kind of going back to what we started with, there was we were in a place of transition. We saw ourselves failing. And I think a lot of, we'll say men right now. I think a lot of men are living their lives without purpose, without adventure, and without meaningful relationships. And we've discovered that. We have identified, people within our network, and we've had these conversations as we've been intentional with this, that there's data out there, right? That the number of friends that you have as you get older continued to decrease. I just listened to a podcast, and they said that in the last 5 years, the data shows that the number of friends are decreasing by more than 15%. And I think it's like 30% of Americans say they have no close friends. And that's crazy to me, right?
Yeah, we all three of us experienced that ourselves. We I think together we ended up, kind of a tribe of the three of us as we exited the military, and that was really important, I think, for all three of us, and kind of a gift, to be placed together. And we found some things that helped us, and then we said, there may be something here. There may be something that helps. And we started with a group of our close friends. We call them the OG house. And it made huge impacts in their life. And we kind of tested and we iterated. And now we said, okay, there's clearly something happening around us, to the men, in America, to veterans, to people transitioning. And we think we have a process that is helping men, because we are seeing it. Like, we are seeing the fruits of this over an 18-month period actually play out in men's lives. They're making amazing moves in their career, when a year ago they were questioning what they were going to do and asking if we knew anybody that might have an opening. We've seen guys losing weight and getting off medicines. We've seen guys who have gone out and literally moved their family to be closer to their job, so that they can be with their wives and kids for a greater period of the day. We have seen some amazing outcomes. And so we know, we have seen it. We've seeing the outcomes of following through this process on a regular basis with a tribe of men around you with accountability. And it's just that's why we've become so passionate about it, and we're changing the name, and we're kind of applying it to this process.
Well, yeah, and I also want to be clear on something else. Like we are, and I'll speak for myself. I'm a people person, right? I love my friends very deeply. Most of my friends are like family. My kids are confused on why they have so many uncles because the depth of our relationships is so deep that our friends, and we say in our house, like it's a core value. Our friends are the family that we choose, right? And nothing was more heartbreaking than to see people that you care about and to see just men in general uh, giving up their power to be agents of change and influence and men that are just that can pour into their kids and their wives and their families, their communities, and they just don't. And we know they don't a lot of times because it just is just it's either cultural lies of who we should be as men in our identities, or it's these barriers that we can break through so easily by saying hello and being like, hey man, you want to be my friend? Like we did as kids. Like we did as kids. You know, when the Bible talks about, when Jesus talks about the children, like he references them as examples of faith, right? And so I look at kids and see the ability to make friends and talk to people and put your walls down is something that's a superpower. And so when we do that, it can unlock something very special. And a simple hello can change somebody's world. And we've seen it happen so many times. And there's nothing more sad than living this solitary, lonely life, and you rob the world. Not only are you robbed personally, but you rob the world of the essence of who you are. And it's particularly painful when you're robbing those closest to you, like your family and your kids, of that essence. And so, like, we need to do something about that, right? That's just another motivation, another driver behind why we do this. Not just a business to make money and do this and that. No, dude, we want to see men freed from this, a lot of times self-imposed prison, to become the men that they're supposed to become.
Yeah, dude. I one of the members of our group, one of the OGs. We were on a call the other day. It was a couple months ago now, but I won't forget it. And he had done a date with his kid. He actually took his son away for the weekend, just him and his son. And we were talking. And he was telling me about it, and he was all excited. And he said, Stu, I finally feel like a dad. I finally feel like I'm doing a good job as a dad. And his kid was, I think he's 12. And he finally feels like he's a good dad because of the stuff that we're doing in there. And to me, like that's what it's about, right? We have men like finding their faith and reconnecting with God again. We have men um, reconnecting with their dad, their biological dad that left them 35 years ago. Like it's powerful stuff happening in this tribe. And so I want to leave with, what we call the kinetic man. The kinetic men are men that our wives celebrate. The men our sons want to become, the men our daughters want to marry, and the men our friends call brother. We are men of impact, and we are the heroes of our journey. So that whole kinetic life circle, that's our map. That's the map that we use to become kinetic men.
So what is our message today? What are we delivering here? We are making it clear to the world that whether you want to call it a rebrand or a clarity of focus, that this is what we are doing now. This is our passion. This is our business. This is our tribe and our community that we're building is the Kinetic Man. We are a group of men that take action, that are building a tribe around these values. We talked about the foundation, clarity, identity, values, and purpose, and then all the topics that we cover. So we are going to build a tribe in many different ways, and you can you can connect with this tribe in many different ways. We want to share this message with as many men as possible. But most importantly, you have to put this stuff into action. You have to make it real. You have to actually take the things that you learn about, that you read about, that you hear about here, and put them into action. And I think that's really where the kinetic man is going to make a difference in the world. And so if the stuff that we talked about today, if the subjects and, if this feels like you, this kind of hits at your core as a man, wherever you are, the kinetic man might be your tribe. But if it's not, that's okay. Go find a tribe. And if you don't find a tribe, then create a tribe, right? We talk about this a lot. How many times are you the dad that is fortunate enough in your career or your job to be standing on the playground with your kids? So first off, let's acknowledge the fact that you are fortunate to be standing on a playground in the middle of a day with your kids, because there's a lot of men who aren't in that place. And there are other men around, and all of you are standing 10 feet apart, equally spaced, and nobody's talking to each other, right? Be the person who goes up and introduces yourself and introduces your kid and says, like, hey, what do you do? What, how are you? What kind of things do you enjoy? Are you passionate about, right? Like, be that nucleus. So find your tribe. But if the things we talk about connect with you, then the Kinetic Man may be your tribe, right? And we're going to deliver this message. We're going to deliver it on our podcast. So you notice that the podcast name has changed, the logo has changed, the colors have changed. That matches our socials. We've got a new website, thekineticman.com. So you can connect with us in lots of different ways. We have the podcast every week, a couple times a week. We've got local meetups in Denver that we do periodically. We were doing them monthly. We may go back to that. We're kind of testing out some things. We'll see. And so you can find how to sign up for those local meetings on our website. We've got 2 retreats a year that we're going to do. We've got the mastermind where guys meet every week. We've got the monthly calls inside of the mastermind where we cover some bigger topics and we bring in guest speakers. So there's lots of different levels that you can connect with this tribe. But what's really important, and that I think we've discovered, is that the men that you keep around you, your counsel, they become increasingly important as you get towards and into middle age. And so the book The Good Life, which is the authors are the 2 I would call them the keepers of the 80-year study that Harvard did on happiness and joy and a healthy life. And it's one of the longest longitudinal studies, meaning they followed the same people for so long. They've done it for so long that they're actually studying into the 3rd generation of the original participants. And the number one driver of how long you will live and your health, taking into account all the other factors, is your relationships, the quality of the relationships around you. And we all know that it gets harder to have friends as you get older. And so you have to make a point of it. You have to make a point of finding the tribe and council that you put around you, but also making sure that that they have the same values and that they hold you accountable. And that's one of the things that the Kinetic Men do. If you come to any of our retreats, if you participate in any of our events, we will ask you, what are you taking away from this? What do you plan on doing when you get home? What do you plan on doing 2 weeks from now? And you might even get a phone call from Goody, who will call you repeatedly until you answer the phone. He does not accept screening calls. And so if you're a man
That's a true
who's
statement.
looking, that it is a true statement. He will judge you harshly for screening his calls.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But if you're a man looking for other men who share the similar values and want to become better fathers, husbands, and friends, then this is the kind of tribe for you. We have men who are looking for clarity and purpose by defining the many identities that they wear and what values that leads to, and being able to put that on paper and actually evaluate that and then move to an identity and values and purpose that they want to be at. We are for men who want to build a network of trust that permeates every part of their lives. We're not a business mastermind. We're not a business tribe. We're not a real estate tribe. There's plenty of those out there, and they're great, and they're doing good things in the world. But that's not what this is. This is for men who want to focus on being, the heroes of their stories at home for their family, and also have successful passions and successful careers, right? So recently we had an investor call inside of our mastermind, and it was the first one we did. We weren't sure how it was going to go. We kind of put a call out for, hey, any of you crazy businessmen that are participating in these awesome deals, if you want to bring a deal and share it with the group, both for learning and for possibly funding, then let's do that inside of this private closed group. And we did not cherry pick. We just kind of took the first 4 that we got, and they were awesome. I mean, everyone walked away from that call and was like, this was awesome. And it's not because we're a business mastermind. It's because we're a group of men who have built trust, and we now have the speed of trust that a 15-minute pitch and description of a deal is something that really lights your fire. And there were, it gave access to me and one of the other men in the group we're talking about afterwards. It gave access to us to, investment opportunities that are reserved for like other people, reserved for like those magical people that are investment fund managers and kind of out of reach of the normal person, right? Like that's what these men brought to the table. And it was because this was a group that they trust. They had built that speed of trust through many weeks of being on the phone together and talking through these core items and becoming better men together as a group. So, and the last thing
I wanted to invest in all of those deals, and
yeah,
unfortunately I don't have enough money to invest in all those deals. So I am investing in some of those deals.
Yeah. And all of those deals got investments.
Totally.
So,
some of them fully funded.
Yeah. It was just, it was an outcome that was evidence of the tribe that has been built in this community. That's what it was for us. And the thing that I'll end on here is there's a concept that we talk about. We talked about it a while ago that really described, I think, what a lot of these men have experienced, ourselves included. Like we started with identifying it in ourselves, and we've seen a lot of other people go through this, which is the second mountain. And so almost all of these, I'm going to say almost all of these men have been extremely successful by normal standards in their first career, right? We're talking commanders, we're talking Marine One pilots, we're talking guys with 600 doors as a real estate investor, we're talking have reached the pinnacle but are looking for something else. Like that was not how they wanted to define a successful life. And so that second mountain is what am I going to do? Like, what's my purpose? What is my clarity of purpose for that second mountain? And what is the tribe and the community of men that I'm going to do that with as I redefine success, as I get towards that eulogy that is what I want it to be at the end of my life. And so, that's what this group of men is here for, is to redefine success together, to hold each other accountable, and to be amazing fathers, husbands, and friends. So I'll say our website is thekineticman.com. You can go there. If this stuff interests you, then go there. You can sign up for our emails, and we will push emails out for everything that we're doing, right? We will push emails out if we're going to go to lunch and in Denver. We'll push them out for our retreats. There is a retreat coming up. You can sign up for that and get some information. You can get information on if you want to join the mastermind and you want to really dive into these topics with us on a weekly basis, which is where the real impact is made. You can connect with us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. So all of the socials have been changed to the Kinetic. Most of them are the Kinetic Man, or at the Kinetic Man. There's a few variations in there, but we've got a LinkedIn page. I know, Stu, you've got some Instagram pages.
Yeah, buddy. I got personal Instagram page, and then the Kinetic Man Instagram page. And as much as everybody wants David to have his own TikTok page so everyone can see his amazing dance offs, doesn't exist yet. Sorry, everybody.
Well, I should say it does exist.
Oh,
it actually does exist. It has been reserved, so you can't go out there and steal the name from us. But keep an eye on that when that one shows up.
that
Lots of dance moves coming.
let's not release it
Lots of dance
because
moves coming.
it might push people away from joining this group.
Yeah. Yeah. But in all
we'll have
seriousness,
numbers we can't handle trying to sign up.
in all seriousness, no. If you are on LinkedIn, go follow Dave and Stu and the Kinetic Man, because these guys are putting out stuff every single day, right? Like you don't need to pay money to get the quality of information that we're putting out, right? Again, we were going to put content out because it's our passion across the whole spectrum. And I know Dave and Stu, you guys are killing it every day with solid, valuable bits on LinkedIn and posts and blog posts and that kind of stuff.
Fired up, man. How about you guys?
Dude, I love it,
Fired up.
man. I love it. From the moment we decided to make the changes to the Kinetic Man, I've just have been fired up. There's so much meaning in it, and just excited for the future. Looking forward to those that are going to join us, and really not just for us, but man, I'm excited for your kids. I'm excited for your wives. I'm excited for the impact, your communities, your churches. I'm excited for these men that we're surrounded by, embracing their power, making changes, being fully kinetic, and just being powerful. I'm super excited about it. Love it. And
Yes,
TikTok
sir.
dances.
Yeah.
There's going to be, here's what I envision. There's going to be, because I don't know, there's all these dance names. There's going to be the Kinetic Man dance, and it's going to be something that we do, and all the other TikTokers are going to be doing the Kinetic Man dance, and it's going to be tight. It's going to be dope.
Who I want on TikTok? I want Carlos. I want to see Carlos on TikTok.
Carlos gets down. Carlos gets down. All right, boys. Johnny Big Brains and Bobby Checklist.
Oh, I thought you were going to forget. I thought you were going to go with bro
BTS.
there. I thought it was bro.
Love you guys. No, there's power in a name. Bobby Checklist, Johnny Big Brains.
Go be kinetic. Get
Kinetic
some.
Man.
Giddy up.
What's up, everybody? Hey, this is Stu. And before we close out this podcast episode, I want to tell you about a live webinar that we are doing on Thursday, July 13th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. This is just going to be a Q&A session. We're going to talk about the Kinetic Man Mastermind and the next house that's starting in September. If you just listened to this episode and this sounds of interest to you, this sounds like your tribe, but you still have some questions that you want answered, come join us on this webinar. We'll answer all of your questions. We'll talk about, what we do inside the mastermind, what we talk about, the curriculum that we go through, and just see if this is a right fit for you. Register via LinkedIn. There is a link in our show notes, and then also you can go directly to LinkedIn and search for the Kinetic Man, and there'll be an event page on the Kinetic Man site on LinkedIn. Hey, if you want to hear from some testimonials from men inside the group already and see what it's done for them in their lives, go listen to these. We'll see you there.
So when you think about leaving the military and you put on the uniform every day and you do a decent job, you continue to make rank, and then at some point you make a transition, how does that former self make an impact now? And when I think about that, you still have a desire to serve. You still have a desire to make an impact in your community, in your family's life, wherever life finds you. And so to be able to be with a group of men that has those shared interests where our values align, and everybody wants to see whatever it is they can do with their God-given gifts to shine a light on their community, to do their part in transforming what they can, man, that's something I want to be a part of.
A lot of it is about me being the best me that I can be, but also opening up and having those conversations, forcing me to have those conversations with my wife and kids is something I would never have previously kind of been felt to be pulled towards. And this group has really opened up my eyes at how important that is, to really open those lines of communication and be open, honest, and vulnerable with the people that are most important in my life.
Thank you for listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com to see all the ways we can connect.
And on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take and common action.